Oh, it's my own comment. How about that?
Hello, we're here on Poet to Poet, Writer to Writer, and I'm here with my guest, Timothy Gager, who has a new book out, The Shutting Door. It's delayed here. Poems, what is it? The Shutting Door, Poems by Timothy Gager. Very good title. And Tim and I have a long history of going back to the Somerville News Writers Festival, which we did very successfully since 2003, and it ended in 2010, right?
Yes, that was the last year of it.
That was the last year of it, and I published a number of books with Tim, and this is his first full-length collection with us, I believe.
That is correct. We did a chapbook back in 2002, I believe.
Oh, great. So I'm really pleased to have Tim on the show, and I'm going to ask you a few questions, of course, probing questions, getting all the skeletons out of your closet, which are many.
Usually they charge me $100 an hour for that.
First, let me read your official bio. I mean, The Shutting Door is Timothy Gager's 10th book. His fiction and poetry have been appeared over 250 times in literary journals, and he has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize 9 times. Also, his work has been read on National Public Radio. Timothy was formerly the fiction editor of the Wilderness House Literary Review and the founding editor of the Heat City Review. Short-lived, but it was a good magazine. And he has hosted the successful Dire Reader series, and that's about 12 years now, right?
12 years will be 13 in February.
Unbelievable. And he's co-founder of the Somerville News Writers Festival, and he's a graduate of the University of Delaware, and he's lectured at Bunker Hill Community College and Endicott College and Massasoit College. Thank you for being here again, Tim. I was going to ask you, you said in the title of your new book, a new collection of poetry, The Shutting Door by the Ibison Street Press of Somerville, we published that. You're shutting the door on your old life. And in a way, are you shutting a door on your old writing?
That kind of evolved on by itself. You slowly do things. Very often you don't make a conscious effort to shut doors on things. They just kind of happen. So this is very representative. I'm very open about my past and what's going on in my life. So nearly every single one of these poems were written after the fact of my last drink, my last use of drugs.
Okay.
So this book kind of shuts the door on that. It's very representative of that to me, and it's very important to me.
So has your writing changed, do you think, since you stopped boozing and drugging, to put it bluntly?
Yes and no. It's funny. You can always go back and borrow from your experiences.
You can always what?
Go back and borrow from your experiences. You can always do that. But, to promote or not to promote, it just depends on your characters. It depends on who your narrator is.
Well, one of your heroes was, I don't know if still is Bukowski. But, people tell me that Bukowski couldn't have been quite a bit as drunk as he was, because you have to really have discipline, and you can't be, totally out of it to be writing all the time. And he was very organized as well, and very calculating about what he was doing.
Well, maybe. I mean, if he wrote 2 poems a day and it took him an hour per poem, he got a lot of time to do some of those things. But, who am I to judge that? I think his persona is the attraction. And what he doesn't get credit for, he gets credit for a lot of his work. What he doesn't get credit for is he puts people in the position to write because they admire his work.
Okay. And you talk about your alcohol addiction. And what do you think drove you toward this? And in a way, like great writing, I was telling people today, I was lecturing in a class, and a lot of great writing comes from great suffering. I mean, if you just you're writing about your mother giving you oatmeal cookies in her gingham dress, and then you go down the creek to catch catfish. Sometimes that doesn't make, but actually, conflict and pain. So tell me, what drove you to drink, and how is it? Do you think it helped your work? I mean, in a way.
Difficult question. I don't know if I want to get all that personal about it. I mean, I've analyzed it myself, and that's a lot of work. In terms of the great suffering, great writing connection, I think great writing connects with great writing. If that's what you want to do. if you really want to be a great writer, you don't have to be in the gutter to do it. You can go to school. There are writing courses. There are critique groups. There are MFA programs. There are...
Yeah, those critique groups will give you enough suffering anyway. You know, people really
Very
go
often.
after you. Yeah.
And very often, also, if you're a new writer and you in a critique group, you don't always know what critique works with your own personal voice, your own personal narration, and what to go with. Which, I mean, you're not going to learn that until you write more. So it's sort of a slippery slope. You know, you get caught up in that.
Okay. Okay. We see we couldn't really get to Skeletons, what drove him. You know, he's a very savvy customer, and I don't blame you. Robert Olin Butler, who you secured for the Somerville News Writers Festival, Pulitzer Prize winner. I mean, this guy just, you know, is a major American writer. Wrote of you that you were a genius of the quotidian, right?
Yes.
And how do you take that? I mean, what do you think he means? Tell me, give me the nuances of that.
It's sort of like I write. My work isn't very. The language in my work tends to be very basic, and the stories I tell are very basic stories. It can happen to you or me. People like Raymond Carver do that very well. I think what he means, and I hate to quote him and jump into his head, it's something that he feels that I do well. I was very blown away by that comment by him and that blurb by him, because I asked him, I know him very outside. I mean, I'm not a personal friend of his, but I know him and I respect him. And when he agreed to blurb the book and have a look at it, I was kind of, you know, very grateful and thankful for that. And I just figured he was a very nice man. I know him as a very nice man, a very sweet man, and an excellent, excellent writer.
The limited experience I've had with him.
And, you know, when he said yes, I, you know, went a little overboard saying, oh, it's so wonderful, I'm so grateful, this is great. And his response was, I've been a fan of your work since the Somerville News Writers Festival, which blew me away even more. Like, you know, here he is, he knows my work, he reads, obviously, he's a writer, he reads. And, like, you know, hearing something like that is so much more important than getting it on the back of any book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's nice too.
It's very nice. And you know what, there's not just, you know, Mr. Butler. There's so many generous people put themselves out there for my book. We have a call coming in. This ought to be interesting.
I never do this, so Tim is doing it, so go ahead.
Then I get a production type of thing here. Hello, you're on the air.
Who is this?
This is Tim Gager. Who's this?
This is Susan Tupper.
Susan!
Hello.
Susan from...
Hi there, Dougie.
So Susan is an excellent writer, so you should check her out as well.
She has a new book out, actually, the Merrill Diaries, right?
So Susan, you have a question for me?
Yes, I do. I want to know what your favorite breakfast cereal is.
My favorite breakfast cereal is Raisin Bran.
Oh, yuck!
I can't get enough of Raisin Bran, and I find when I'm without my Raisin Bran, things don't go that well. It's sort of a superstition.
Well, then, I hope they keep making it.
Susan, thanks very much for calling in. Love you.
Love ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Susan Tepper is a great writer, and she's been up here. Unfortunately, she was supposed to come up in Cambridge, but her husband had an unfortunate accident. She was unable to, but she has the KGB reading series in New York.
She'll be back.
She will.
She will be back
here.
She
can't keep her down. Anyway, you've run the Dire Reader series for over 12 years, and so many come and go. You know, so many reading series. I mean, just like small presses, they're very short-lived. But you've managed to do this, and you know, it has its ups and downs. Sometimes your place is packed, and other times it's not. But now it's more often than not packed. And you've developed a reputation, had many major writers over there. What is the secret to keep running a reading series like that going so long?
Just not quitting. Like, it's very, very difficult to keep something going, because when things aren't going as well as you want them to go, you know, there's always a why bother. For me, there's always a why bother. And series come and go, and right now there's so many good series and excellent series out there that, you know, it splits your audience. You know, the dull times have stuck with it. I'm sure that, you know, we, as you say, we ebb and flow. And I'm not looking to end anytime soon. I threatened to end it in, like, I believe 2010. But, you know, we keep it going. It's great, and it helps a lot of writers. A lot of writers get exposure. The features are wonderful, and it's helped me in my writing and my promotion. I made the connections. Every writer that I've had in there, I've connected with. It's helped my writing career. And I didn't start the Dire Literary Series as a self-serving series. But you meet people. As a writer, you need to go out of your way to meet people. You never know.
What connection?
I mean, before the phone call, we were talking about the connections I made. The generous people, January O'Neill, Fred Marchant, Alpha Michael Weaver, Michael Ansara. They all said very nice things about this book, and I pretty much can narrow down that I've met nearly every one of them through the Dire series.
Right, that's true. Now, you're well known, and you may even be more well known as a fiction writer. I don't know. It's a pretty tough call, but I mean, where do you find your most pleasure? Where do you find your heart's really in, if you had to give one?
That's similar to the question of, like, who's your favorite writer. It depends on what I'm doing. Like, which one would I quit first is almost a better question.
That's a better question.
Because you know, when things are working on all cylinders, I love everything. When I'm struggling in any various form, that's when I feel like I'm better at the other form. I mean, currently, even though I have this book of poetry out, what I'm writing right now in poetry, I'm surrounded by so many good poets and excellent poets. I feel like I've got so much more to learn there, and my curve of writing something thinking it's good to becoming dissatisfied with it, I think that's what I do as a writer. I finish something, I think it's good, and then I look around and in 3 months I'm dissatisfied because I can do better. That happens much more often with my poems than with my flash fiction.
Now, you know, we're both over 50 now, and we were looking at a younger generation of writers and poets coming in, and you know, who are the hot talents that you've noticed? You're out there, you know, you have the hand on the pulse, and you know, keep your hands off other parts. But I mean, your hands on your hand is on the pulse. And so, what do you see as hot and up and coming, and right now in this area?
In this area, in terms of making noise or in terms of work?
Well, both.
I would say, you know what, I get very, very connected with the Leslie MFA program, so I know a lot of the writers there. So, and you know, there's a group of poets that are coming out. There's Tisha Toomey, Mary Benson, Sherry Kaplan, Jen Fitzgerald. They're all coming out of there right now, and their work's amazing. 3 of them are local here. In terms of making a big noise, Jade Sylvan makes a huge noise with her work in terms of touring, getting attention for her work,
and
getting out there.
She has good work.
So, like, you know, I credit her 100% with that. I mean, people that know how to write and know how to promote, that's kind of what you need to do, because if you're weak in either of those areas, you're definitely behind behind on the curve.
Right, because a lot of people can write well, but if you can promote and be persistent, you know, that was certainly would help you.
And you know that as a publisher, too. You can publish great work, but if they get the box of books and they don't make a peep about it, you're going to end up with a box of books.
Right. You're exactly right. I was reading your poem, The Shutting Door, and you know, you're sort of, it's a love poem, isn't it? I think about love, you know, with the encroaching darkness, there's light. What do you think? Why don't you read the poem? I mean,
I can read the poem.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really difficult. I write so often that I always need to reference my own work now.
Yeah.
I don't know I've never really memorized. The only poem I've memorized is the first poem you ever published from me, which was my first public piece.
So The Shutting Door is one. Oh, that's it. Yeah. Okay.
The Shutting Door. We are solid oak doors that shut on our past, close on dead mothers, sons, daughters. These doors swell often, won't open. One midnight we walked towards woods, the moss cold under our toes, as we were caught in the light for a moment, a glimpse of half full. We are dim lights on dark nights, sending out calls to the wolves howling at the sun, because the moon hanging there yet never seems to hear them. If I should need to step back to see how you glow in this light illumination, I can be at one with that. Us, growing like violets in the dark.
There's the question, I mean,
Yeah.
I was thinking, is there a love interest in that?
There's a glint of love. A lot of it has to do with, like, we've all kind of had rough paths. And in order to find solid relationships and grow as human beings, you have to shut the door on those paths. You've got to get over, as they say, you know what, the worst thing you can tell someone that's had like a rough upbringing is like, get over it. But the advice for that, yeah, you do have to get over it, but you got to shut the door. It's not like getting over it, because that can be like a really like terrible thing to tell somebody. But you got to kind of shut the door, and so shut it slowly, and you can move on with that. So like, you know, it's two people find each other after like shutting the door on things, and like it's night and it's dark, and there's this illumination.
Okay. Well, Tim, by the way, you can get the Shutting Door at ibbitsonpress.com, and there's a link there to buy it. And Tim, you can also contact Tim on his website, which is timothygager.com. And you can also go to the Diarrhea series that meets every third Friday. And
At first Friday of every month. We have a call, Doug.
Oh, go ahead.
Hello, poet to poet, writer to writer.
Hi, I have a question for Tim.
Yes, hi, Minion. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Fantastic. That is Minion, a fantastic poet. Ms. King, go ahead.
Hi, I want to know, you write really well in fiction and poetry, and I want to know how you do that, like if there's some if you consciously flick a switch in your head and go from one to the other genre?
That's a good question. Sometimes I actively say I'm going to write a poem today because I need something in my pile, or write a piece of fiction. Very often, how I write is very visual. So what ends up happening is I get a first line in my head or an image in my head, and if the next line tends to be like really narrative, it starts heading in that direction. If the next line is kind of blocky, like a poem might be blocked off, it'll head in that direction. But then, it doesn't necessarily stay in that direction either, and that's happened as well. Like, you know, you fiddle in your head, like, this will be better as a poem, this will be better as a piece of fiction. So it can be very random with that. But I appreciate your call, you're a wonderful poet, and we'll talk soon.
Good, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, good. So where were we? Oh, yeah, so I was going to ask you now, Diarrhea series, the first of every month.
Yes. Out of the Blue Art Gallery,
Out of the Blue
106
Art
Prospect
106
Street.
Prospect Street. I read there years ago, one of the first ones, right?
You read in a snowstorm. It was the only snowstorm ever.
It must have been a decade ago, right?
It was in 2000, and yeah, it was early in the series, and like, I've never had to cancel because of weather, but it's very possible. I mean, it can happen in the winter. My old mentality was 6 inches, 12 inches, I'm going to be there. If no one else is there, I'm going to be there, and that's that. Because, I mean, why reschedule? There's no way to reschedule anyway. So I remember you reading in a snowstorm was it with Richard? Wilhelm?
No. Yeah, it might have been. No, it was some other woman from Lesley University.
Yeah, and I remember that. It was like,
Richard read on a different day. Yeah. But anyway, it was a great thing. I may be asking you for a reading for my new book. I don't know. Do you think I'll get a shot, or add this on your resume? And
we'll fill an open spot after July.
All right, right after my birthday. Anyway, I don't want to take away from your reading, so go ahead, read, comment on the poems, take calls, have a good time.
Thanks very much. I already read The Shutting Door.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really screen these poems, so hopefully I'll pick language appropriate ones, but it is cable TV.
Yep.
Manamet Point. Standing halfway to your knees, the ocean a vast bouquet, aerated as tides change. You push in, pull back, lift salt water into your palm, funnel it through hands as big as fishing boats off in the distance. Mermaids for sure, you praise God for such hope. So simple, you find yourself joyous at pebbles, springing in somersaults, the slick green seaweed rolling in, slow giggles which curl into laughter. That's all about like a beautiful, beautiful day in Plymouth. And, you know, just the visuals on that poem, like I was talking about, the sunlight and the pebbles and the seaweed, and just, you know, enjoying the day with people that I love. That's really, really nice. We can get a little gritty, too.
We're all adults here.
So, I'm going to read a poem. Again, this is personal to me. You know, a couple years ago, someone had to teach me to use a knife and fork because, you know, I was described as eating like an animal. And I still eat like an animal, but at least I hold my knife and fork correctly.
I remember when we were all out at Jake Worth's and you had this unbelievable plate of French fries and something else that was flying all over the table.
I know, it's, you know, I tend to not really like to eat in front of people because of that. I realize my faults, my flaws, so now
I'm not known for my table manners either, believe me.
So now I just kind of eat like in isolation.
Yeah.
So this is kind of about that. You knew me before. You knew me before I was reincarnated from an animal, a snake, a pig, then lastly a bear. You said you saw me walking to the stream, pulling out raw salmon with my teeth, jaws clenched, sinking into the soft pink. The spray from their guts misted my face while I devoured fermented berries until I laid, legs up, full-bellied, sleeping in the sun after I roared, raved, destroyed everything I touched. My clothes wrinkled, shoes untied. Remember how I held a knife and fork like a hammer and chisel? Look how I created something beautiful out of rock. The poem 2, we got a call, but the poem 2 is, we lost him. So they can call back.
Yeah, call back.
The poem also has to do with me recreating myself as a sober person. You know, I don't have to be that animal that I was. Because I mean, people knew me, and I was a lot of fun, I must admit at times, but like, you know, it was just time for me to kind of sit back, you know, chisel out something beautiful out of that, you know, rough spot. All right, let's see if we can do this correctly. Hello, poet to poet, writer to writer.
Hey, Doug. Hi, Tim. This is Chad Prento calling.
Chad. Chad runs the tremendous Stone Soup poetry every Monday night at 8 p.m. at the Out of the Blue Art Gallery, 106 Prospect Street. Thanks, Chad. Hey, I got to get a reading over there. What do you think my chances are?
Boy, we've taken over the show, I guess. Yes, Chad Prento, what do you got for us?
Well, first of all, I do want to plug Tim's appearance coming up at Stone Soup on November 25th. Definitely buy his new book, just like I have. And I actually had a curious question. I've been doing a lot of work with poets who are trying to put poems to music and such. And Tim, I know you have had a storied musical career yourself. If you had not even so much a poem music project, but a multimedia project that someone gave you money to do, what do you think it would be?
Poems to music is very interesting because, you know, writing lyrics has a lot to do with poetry and actually why I stopped writing poems for 20 years. There's a story behind that I've told before. Multimedia project, I would love, one of my favorite readings I ever did was at Mass Poetry 2 years ago with Michael Herman, and it had a live painter who painted like on the floor with her feet while the poetry was going on. Oh, actually her entire body, she kind of slid around. It was pretty amazing and a lot of fun. I mean, I really enjoy art and painting. I also enjoy music. The readings I've done, like with music behind me or with other musicians, tend not to go as well because people usually want to hear the poems or hear the music, but not them both together. But I would love to do some sort of like art being created with a group of poets while the poetry is going on, like almost like a marathon type of thing. I mean, that would kind of be my idea.
So, Chad, when is Tim reading again?
Last I checked, November 25th. That's the last Sunday of November. Our open mic starts at 8 o'clock, and the feature goes on around 9-ish, and it's great to have Timothy back.
Could you tell us who else you've got coming up? Who else do you...
We have Chris Weinrich. We're still solidifying Stone Soup for the month of November, but I can tell you that we have Tony B., former Cambridge poet populist, starting as
co-host. I love Tony B.
Tony B., yes. And we have Chris Weinrich, who is involved in the Brockton Arts scene. He's going to be reading this coming Monday. We just had David Oxleret read, so we've had a lot of strong people.
We just reviewed David's new book out, right?
North Shore, South Shore, and beyond.
Yeah.
All right, Chad Parento, thanks a lot. We'll be talking soon. I'll see you on the 25th.
Thanks, Doug.
Bye-bye. That's Tim said that, but I also just like to say that Chad Parento has taken Stone Soup and you know, it was and really made it even more than it was, brought it into the 21st century, and he's done a fine job there every Monday, right?
Yes, so he has. He has. Chad is a very, very close friend.
Right.
But like when I stopped writing for 20 years of poetry, I took a course in college, and I don't want to do the whole story, but I took a course in college, and because I wanted to be a better lyricist, and I was very not encouraged to write poetry from that course. I felt really bad about myself. I felt I was a lousy poet, and I probably was.
What was the name of that poet? He had a really bad name too. You always tell my students whenever you lecture that the guy's name. His name is Frederick Snodgrass. Right?
So anyway, and then you turned around and I wrote a poem because I kind of ran out of time in my life to write longer works of fiction. So I started writing poems, and you published the first poem of mine in Ibbotson called Insect, which is a little 6-line poem.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I remember that. I think I remember something with a buzz.
I dreamed I was a fly on the wall for that conversation.
Did you ever read Emily Dickinson's?
I was going to give you the whole poem, and I guess it's...
All right.
I dreamed I was a fly on the wall for that conversation, but instead I was a fly stuck on a no-pest strip in a dirty old kitchen in Mississippi.
All right. So, I was going to say, did you ever read Emily Dickinson's poem, The Fly?
Yes.
Were you inspired by that? Or?
No, it had nothing to do with that.
Different style.
Oh, Emily Dickinson. Yeah, as they say, I'm no Emily Dickinson, and I probably never will be.
Well, I mean, even if you were, as great as she was, and you're a great poet, but, you have a totally different style and way of looking at things, right?
That's the beauty of poetry and writing. Different styles. That's really why I love flash fiction, too. There's so many different styles you can go into.
Let's see if you can get another poem in.
Let's do it. Let's find something. Right off the beginning, right off the bat here. Once we were friends. Lint in disheveled wool, 2 ingredients from a cold, rough mixture. Us becoming listle, slurry too thick as thieves. We were robbing infinite specks of meaning, stealing how short time is, sucking sweet air from hookah, making a demarcation of opening our arms. We've woven by love, a single thread judders, unwraps, warbles in unraveled sobs, like an empty abode endlessly coming undone. How are we doing with time?
Good.
Do another one?
In fact, for the sake of the tape, I always let people read, even if the show goes off the air. So. Okay.
All right,
By the way, I was going to say our next guest will be, but I forget her name. So go ahead. I'm
going to do a quick one, and I'm going to read this one for a friend of mine. While I'm driving home, your boyfriend Chuck bounces a basketball out the window from the backseat of the moving car. Chuck's no Pistol Pete Maravich, more like Slick Willie, but I've already had that chat with him. Try to stay as clean as she, don't shoot behind her back, but he popped a subutext into his mouth, crunched it like Pez, and laughed. Now he dribbles in the back as she sits soaking wet in the front seat after we sang and danced in the rain. My fault you got drenched when I couldn't find the car in Kenmore Square. We walked down the wrong street, ended up in Back Bay, the weather not cooperating, not bothering to warn me. It's a waste of time to find your way. Since I've never danced like Gene Kelly, especially when I kicked at some puddles, shot some spray, came on with the rain, had a